So Godzilla vs Kong. Overall, it's got some good, it's got some bad, so let's talk about it. I found myself rather disappointed with this movie, and that's a surprise because, as I stated last week on the movie film show, I wasn't expecting too much from it other than a lot of fun. That's what this movie should be. Fights between monsters and just a load of fun. And sure, it's got some monster fights, but it takes a long time to get there. I'm not to say I'm disappointed by this movie, but there is a lot I enjoyed about this movie. And with a movie like this, you can never expect it to be a Citizen Kane. It's not going to be a phenomenal story. It's not going to be a mind-blowing movie. This is an action movie where you want to see a monster punch another monster in the face. And that does happen. It takes 40 minutes to get to the point where King Kong finally punches Godzilla in the face. And it was fantastic when he did. On a boat, just right across the face. It was sensational, but we needed more of it. Now, there was some great monster fights in it, some great moments, but overall I wanted more. And what I wanted less of was the humans. In fact, all of the humans in this movie, bar the little girl and maybe the guy who makes the other Godzilla, I'll try not to spoil that too much, but other than the little girl and the guy who, as I say, makes the other Godzilla, everyone else is irrelevant. Millie Bobby Brown, I understand they had her in King of Monsters and they wanted to have her in this one again. She's a big star because of Stranger Things and a phenomenal actress, of course. But she was completely irrelevant in this movie, other than being on the B team, the B story, that was completely unnecessary. So I'm going to try to keep most of this review spoiler free, but if there is any spoilers coming up, I'll try to keep them towards the end and let you know when I'm going to talk about them, because there is parts I need to talk about with this movie. So the good, overall, I think Kong is fantastic as a character. I think the creature creation is one of the best we've had of Kong in any series, and I really liked Kong Skull Island a few years ago. Seems like a long time since that movie came out. But this movie, as I say, my biggest gripe with it is that it took so long to get to the fights. And it didn't need so much establishing. We've already had a Kong movie and 2 Godzilla movies to set up for this movie, and yet here we are, taking 40 minutes to get to the point where Kong punches Godzilla in the face. And even still, I didn't quite understand why they chose to have the first battle in the water. Now, okay, they're on the ships, and okay, it's a unique setting, but the first battle should have been the 2 of them going toe to toe, one of them coming out on top. And really, Godzilla always had the advantage in the water, and it wasn't quite fair on Kong. Not that fights are always fair. I was just glad with this one no one said, "Oh my Godzilla," so that was a bonus. So as mentioned, the story is nothing spectacular, but it didn't need to be. All this movie needed was big fights between monsters, and it did them, and yet I'm still disappointed. What I will say is this movie looks fantastic. Some of the visuals are great. The creature creation is fantastic. The lighting, the use of color, I think was fantastic. Not everyone loves the use of color that way. And the neon is definitely borderline, whether it's fantastic or overdone. I'm edging towards fantastic. I'm a big fan of colored lights, if you couldn't tell. Visually, movie is fantastic. Story-wise, never needed to be great. Just needed a monster, punch another monster in the face. The writing in the movie, horrendous. The writing was terrible, and that led to the acting being terrible. Some of the main actors who, off the top of my head, I couldn't even remember who they were or what I've seen them in. For the most part, most of the actors were terrible. The likes of Millie Bobby Brown and her team, they were just playing their roles, they did the best they could, but again, it was bad writing. There's also got to be a question of why this grown-ass man is hanging around with 2 kids. That's a whole story that we don't need to go into. This isn't one of those movies where you picture a story and go, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. You go, did I enjoy this movie? And at the end of it, I sat there and went, no. I enjoyed parts of it, and parts of it were great, but some of it was just super dragged out. As I say, it takes 40 minutes for the first fight to happen, the first major fight to happen. Godzilla attacks a town at the beginning, and they're like, oh, why is he doing this? Well, he's Godzilla, he can do what he wants. So to go and save the world from Godzilla, someone gets the plan to go get Kong, and Kong will fight Godzilla. That's pretty much what I predicted would happen on the movie film show last week. Although the events kind of happened differently, but more or less what we got, what I thought we were going to get. Kong versus Godzilla, they fight, destroy the place. Someone decides they have to save humanity from Godzilla, so they, spoiler alert, make their own Godzilla in terms of Mecha Godzilla, and then Godzilla and Kong have to team up to fight Mecha Godzilla. The whole Hollow Earth thing was questionable, but it led to some very good special effects. I love the part where Kong realizes he can jump in the air and switch gravity. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. If you've seen the movie, you know the part I mean. That part was pretty cool. Inside the Hollow Earth was pretty cool. There is questions as well, because they're supposedly inside the Earth, and yet there's still a sky. But I don't know. And when they do get to the fights, like when Kong fights the two flying snake type creatures and he just like rips one of them in half, that was badass. And that was a great fight. And it's what you want to see from the monster movies. You know, all the old school ones, they had fights between the big monsters. Some of them looked terrible back in the day, but they were good fun. And that's what you want to see. You want to see monsters fighting monsters in these type of movies. They are monster movies at the end of the day. There was really weird things, like they set up how difficult it was to get to Hollow Earth, and the humans need these big ships to go through, but Kong could just go through by himself down this wormhole that they had to get through the Antarctic, I think it was. And yet, when they're in the Hollow Earth, Godzilla is up on the normal Earth and he just senses Kong, so he just fires through the ground and creates a hole through the Earth to the Hollow Earth, which, you know, seems kind of stupid. And Kong eventually gets out through that hole and leads to Kong versus Godzilla 2, which is perhaps the biggest fight of the whole film, in a neon city at night. And that fight scene was pretty damn good. Kong had his axe, Godzilla had his superpowers. And they're just tearing through the city, destroying every building, more than likely killing millions in their wake. And there's no one seems to care about that, but you know, the fight goes on, the fight was pretty cool. Godzilla gets the better of Kong, and he could have finished off Kong. He had him dead to rights. He's standing on him. He could just, you know, fire into his face and Kong would be done. But he just leaves him lying on the ground going, I won, see you later. But then we get to the point where they reveal Mechagodzilla in the lab, I guess. The first time we see Mechagodzilla and he like rips a dinosaur in half, or a creature or a monster in half with his vision thing and just pulls them apart. Again, here we go, a great bad guy. It's going to be an epic fight. And the major problem with when we finally get Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, just like in King of the Monsters, they keep cutting away from the action, showing the people instead. No one cares about that. Show the monster fight. For the majority of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, we're focusing on Millie Bobby Brown's crew and them trying to figure out a computer password. Why? But ultimately, it's not Kong or Godzilla using their monster abilities or their superpowers or their axe to destroy Mechagodzilla by themselves. They rely on a kid pouring alcohol on a computer to destroy Mechagodzilla, and then they take advantage of him being powered down. Kind of weakens the monsters, in my opinion. Kind of stupid. Why not just have Godzilla and Kong team up and beat the crap out of Mechagodzilla, pull them apart, and there you go. Overall, I think the movie had the right intentions, had some great moments in it, some great visuals, but it just took so long to get to the fights. And when the fights happened, they don't show enough of the fights. They keep showing the humans and the reactions to it. And it's a mistake they made in King of the Monsters that they just transferred over to this movie. So clearly it's a choice not to show the fights in their full impact. But that's insane. Everyone watches these movies to see two big monsters beat the holy hell out of each other and see who wins. Ultimately, I was left wanting more monster fights, and they do always say leave them wanting more, but in this case, I think it's just a case of there not being enough. In my opinion, the movie should have started with Kong punching Godzilla in the face. It doesn't matter how they got there, just the opening shot, Godzilla's face, then a punch across the face, start off with a big fight. And then at the end of the movie, to end it all, Kong and Godzilla team up against Mechagodzilla, and right when they defeat Mechagodzilla, in an old-fashioned 80s style, they jump up, they high-five in slow motion, and freeze frame after the credits. That's what should have happened. That would have been a fantastic ending. I would have stood up and applauded for that one in my own house by myself. Standing ovation. But, you know, a movie lover can dream. But if I was making Godzilla vs. Kong, that's how the movie would start and end. I think it would be the greatest monster movie of all time. So maybe I just expected a little bit too much from this one. Maybe you think I'm completely wrong. If you do, let me know in the comments below. Maybe you loved every single minute of this movie. But for me, this movie at very, very best is a 6 out of 10 movie. So that's my opinions on Godzilla vs. Kong. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate you checking out another video, or maybe even hitting that subscribe button for new content every Wednesday and Friday, and even Mondays now. I keep forgetting about Mondays. But with all that said and done, thank you so much for watching.